Hello and welcome to this brief analysis of everyone's simulation results from period 2. So right now I'm looking at in your screen the simulation for the third grouping of students, everyone apparently with the last name beginning in S, which is sort of a weird sort of concept, but in itself. But as you can see, Kristen is in the lead because her overall score, based on 35% weighting on time, 35% on cost, and 50% for stakeholder and functionality, gave her the best score. So that's what that means. Doesn't mean that much other than that. So, but what does matter? So look at time. 100% score. Harry scored 100% on time. Matthew scored 0. Let's take a look at what that means. So if we look at Harry's results, we click on that, and we see Harry finished on December 15th. We look at Matthew's results, and we see that Matthew finished on January 23rd. The 15th is great. The baseline results should have been December 23rd for this period for everyone in the simulation. The baseline cost of $39,600 without any managerial or other actions, so just resource costs. So that's what your targets were. So let's take a look at Matthew. The only thing I'd worry about for you is, what caused you to be this late? Were you late the last period and it's still a continuation of that, or did you do something that caused a task to be delayed? Those are the things. And if you can't figure that out, be sure we have a chat before too long about that. So I don't see anything concerning in terms of time. Let's take a look at cost. Again, in terms of cost, Michael had 100%, so let's look at Michael's results. And so the costs, of course, are down here. Michael spent $44,694. The baseline was $39,600. So why does he have 100%? He has 100% because he has the least amount of error based on the project going from the beginning till this point. So it's all the error accumulated till now. So it's really hard to capture that part. But I would capture, more importantly, the part about you spent a little more than budget. You were, 10% over? And that's something that, sure, you might want to find places to spend less money. Again, there's lots of slop in the budget for various things, so there's room for things like this to happen. But again, 100%, that's what the sim says your score was. And let's look at Harry. Harry was 0, and then everyone got sandwiched in between. So Harry had 0. Spent a lot of money on training and had some allocated resources. Not much more on resources themselves. So, but you had the most amount of error. Again, your training, you can see the error that would propagate based on where the money comes from. And so you can take a look at that in your budget areas. And then everyone got sandwiched in between. I won't really discuss much about stakeholder and overall and analysis because I can't help you with that. It's too hard to manage that, so I don't really help too much with that. So that was the one of the 3 simulations. I'm going to pull up the others in a second, but let me pause this video and continue from here. Here is the second grouping of students in the middle simulation with last names starting with M, ending in P. Ending in R. There we go. Same sort of information. Looks like Holden is at the top overall with the score, just like we scored out the other one. And then in terms of time, Holden finished on December 14th, a little over a week early, which also, according to this information here, Kristen also finished at that same point in time. That's what that 100% means for them. And let's take a look at Charles finishing last, but maybe not least, about a week late, a little over a week late from the baseline. That's not bad. It gives you a 0, but don't worry about the 0. Worry about this finish date, and you're not too far off. In terms of cost, again, William has the least amount of error at 100%. Again, spending more than the baseline, about 7% more than planned, but the least amount of error out of everyone. And Chelsea right behind him with about the same amount of dollars there, but just a little more error. Again, if we look at Tanner probably didn't spend much more than anyone else, but his cumulative error is the highest. Again, you're all probably in around nearly the same amount of error off budget, and that's the percentiles look big, but they're actually small in terms of amplitude, or magnitude, I should say. So that's what's going on. That's what I see in the middle simulation. Good. Everyone seems to be doing the right thing. No one seems to have made any major mistakes to cause the simulation to do something unexpected, which is a good thing. So let me pause this one more time, and I'll bring up the first grouping of students. So this results panel is for the first group of students, and Lori still continues to be in first. Looking at her, she had the 100% time cost, or the time score I should say, and finishing right around the baseline, December 19th versus December 23rd. On this particular simulation, we have the computer making no decisions whatsoever, just letting the sim do its thing. And just out of curiosity, the computer finished to 0. And so 4/11/2017, pretty late. So we got a little concerned of Daniel. I think Daniel had a problem because in the first simulation, the computer sort of took things over. And so I think that's why he's already a little bit behind and tracking a little bit with the computer in terms of duration, because I think he missed the first deadline being up in the mountains of Utah. So that's why it looks like everyone scored real well, but really relative to everything else, we should look at Kathleen's duration, see where she wound up at. And Kathleen was pretty late, almost a month late. So that's something that you might want to be concerned about, Kathleen, making sure you understand what caused that delay. Was it allocation resources? Was it training? Or something else that happened, or maybe it's a carryover from the previous period. So something there is worth taking a look at in terms of understanding some of the nuances. And then the last thing we'll talk about is cost. Again, we had 2 teams at 100%. I think this will be the one that describes the example. So let's look at Joshua first. So Joshua spent right around baseline, a little under baseline. So your error, if anything, was in the negative side. It was still counted. It still counted as positive because it's root mean square error. But you do those negative errors count as well. But behind Joshua, or equal to Joshua in terms of cost, was Alyssa in terms of error, and Alyssa spent $5,000 more. So again, it's not from the cost score. It's about root mean square error. I look at this. This is really what's important. How much money you have left? What was your budget at the end? What's left? So keep that in mind as you play in and make decisions in the simulation. If you have questions about any of this stuff, send me an email, post it up at the Moodle Q&A forum. And hopefully this was something that gave you a little more insight as to what's going on. It was a little easier than pulling a spreadsheet together, so I might continue this if feedback suggests this does it for you. So we'll see you next in a couple weeks.